with the NCAA tournament, perhaps one of the greatest finishes to a college basketball game we have ever seen. UCLA and Gonzaga, Jalen Suggs sinking the Bruins on a 40-foot bank shot, buzzer-beating three to propel Gonzaga into the national title game, its second national title game appearance in the program's history. Just an incredible, incredible shot. First, when we look at the shot itself, just a miraculous heave, banks it in, and Jalen Suggs, it looked online the entire way. And in sports, we often use hyperbole. We embellish a lot in sports. That's just kind of a maxim when it comes to sports because that's naturally how we feel. Fans are prisoners of the moment. And I'm a culprit of that. I fall victim to that just as much as the next person and the other people that are watching these types of sporting events. But this might have been the greatest college basketball game that I have ever witnessed. When you look at the stakes of this college basketball game, Gonzaga and their quest to maintain this unblemished, undefeated season, trying to become the first team since 1976 when Indiana State won the entire NCAA tournament going undefeated. And then UCLA, an unspeakable tournament run, a team that had lost its last 4 regular season games and now has won 5 in a row, had to play in the first 4, had to beat Michigan State just to advance into the actual draw, then winning 4 straight games, including defeating Alabama and a number 1 seed Michigan. And now you take on the not only clear-cut favorites, but the team that perhaps was the most heavily favored basketball team in a couple decades to win an NCAA tournament, perhaps the most favored since the Kentucky team in 2015 when they lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. And this is a Gonzaga Bulldogs team that was favored to win this game by 14.5 points. This is the largest deficit, or largest rather, spread of a Final Four game ever. And Gonzaga was riding a 27-game win streak by double digits, beating teams by double digits, 27 straight games. And here you've got UCLA, who, again, coming in with no expectations coming into this tournament, looked down upon entering this game in the Final Four, taking on the presumptive favorite and the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. And when I think back to some of the best shots in college basketball, you can argue that there were a couple more important shots when it comes to the magnitude of the moment, right? Villanova taking on North Carolina in 2016, Chris Jenkins hitting the shot at the buzzer. That was to win an NCAA title, to win a championship. So I understand that shot being elevated. Even Christian Laettner in 1992 when Duke beat Kentucky in the Elite Eight, perhaps you can argue that was a greater shot, although there's a strong case to be made that because this was in the Final Four, Jalen Suggs' shot actually surpasses that one. But we know that there are certain specific shots that have left more indelible marks, although this shot is going to be remembered forever, just going to be etched into Gonzaga and NCAA tournament lore. But when we look at the actual games itself, Gonzaga hadn't been challenged all year. BYU in the West Coast Conference title game was the only team to provide some semblance of adversity for some little stretch of time against Gonzaga. Gonzaga, again, as I mentioned, 27 straight wins by double digits, the most in the NCAA. And it was the longest active streak in the NCAA at the moment. And now they enter into this game against a UCLA team heavily favored, and not to mention UCLA outmanned 2 of their best players coming into the season. One decided to back out of UCLA and sign with the G League, and the other one, Chris Smith, tore his ACL to start the season. And so this type of adversity, that was the biggest question mark coming into this year for Gonzaga and coming into this tournament. How would they respond when they're pushed to the brink? How would they respond when they're able to punch and deliver these body blows and have them sent right back in their direction? We hadn't experienced that. We hadn't seen Gonzaga face that type of pressure all season. Baylor just destroyed Houston. That wasn't even close. And here you have UCLA, who never caves. They're resilient. They continue to fight and fight and fight in this ball game. And just their refusal to lose, because no one deserved to lose this game. Neither team deserved to lose this game. Neither team deserved to go home. And to be honest, I'm going to preview Gonzaga versus Baylor, but this matchup right here may have been the national championship game. Because not only was it the best game of the tournament, again, I would argue it's the best game ever played in college basketball in NCAA tournament history. And so UCLA is delivering blow for blow, answering the call. Gonzaga seems to be pulling away, and UCLA is right back in it. In fact, I would argue that for the majority of the game, while neither team had a major advantage, UCLA actually looked like the slightly better team because they held the lead for longer stretches of time than Gonzaga did. Now, it was extremely back and forth. I mean, this game oscillated back and forth, but UCLA, if it wasn't for Tiger Campbell picking up his second foul early in the first half, they were starting to establish themselves offensively. And this is going up against the number one offense in college basketball, because this was the most riveting, captivating, scintillating college basketball game I've ever witnessed. Thrilling and competitive from start to finish. Literally, there were 15 ties, 19 lead changes in this ball game. If that says anything, UCLA's largest lead was 6, Gonzaga's largest lead was 7. And when you've got such a captivating and mesmerizing game like this, where both teams are evenly matched, it goes into overtime, that's when you know this is an all-time classic. And unfortunately for UCLA, this game did not come down to that final shot by Jalen Suggs, as fantastic as it was. And championship teams need a bit of fortuitous bounces and luck en route to winning a championship. But UCLA, it did not come down to that shot, unfortunately, because they had their time. They had their moment to win this game at the end of regulation when we're tied 81-81. And Corey Kispert misses the three. UCLA's got the rebound. Johnny Juzang has got the ball. The clock's winding down. And he drives to the basket and is called for an offensive foul. Drew Timme with 4 fouls stepped in and took the charge. That was the moment for UCLA. That was the moment of the tournament, the moment of their season. And it's a shame he didn't maybe pull up for a short mid-range shot. Again, no regrets with that. And this is, again, a UCLA fan saying that this was one of the most captivating, this was the greatest college basketball game that I've ever witnessed. And it's heartbreaking for a game to end in this manner, but the game did not come down to that shot. UCLA had their opportunity, and in overtime, they just trailed by 5 with a minute left. Andrew Nembhard hit that 3 to put the Zags up 90-85, and Jaime Jaquez in the corner hits a 3. Juzang misses the shot, gets his own miss, follows his own miss, puts it back up and in. And Cronin didn't have a timeout to set up the defense. But it's one of those examples where you just can't be mad with the outcome. You can't be disappointed because both teams gave you everything they had. No one lost this basketball game. And I love the comments that Mick Cronin said after the basketball game that he iterated to and that he uttered to his team, which is that they won the game. They won the game. And sure, the result wasn't what they wanted, but John Wooden used to use this expression that playing your heart out, you can live with the results if you play your heart out, essentially was what he was trying to say. And so as a fan of basketball, as a fan of college basketball and UCLA and this rivalry in these two programs, It was just a fantastic game from start to finish. I will be honest, I was distraught that Saturday night. I was. And if you're Gonzaga, every national championship team has to undergo some adversity. And there's some iconic moment en route to winning an NCAA title. The same thing happens in professional sports as well. The Lakers, Anthony Davis hit that buzzer beater over the Nuggets in game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. Miami Heat against the San Antonio Spurs. Ray Allen hits the game-saving 3 in the corner. Teams that win championships have that iconic moment, have that moment that leaves an indelible mark in your memory. And Jalen Suggs provided that moment for Gonzaga. Virginia, who was the most recent NCAA champion in 2019, obviously last year COVID stymied any potential and derailed any season from happening. But they had to outlast Purdue in overtime. They got fouled with less than a second remaining to go to the free throw line to send it to overtime. And they ultimately won in overtime. This was a team that had just become historic for the wrong reasons the season prior, losing as a 1 seed to a 16 seed UMBC. And when I just look at every defining moment, that shot just has encompassed this run for Gonzaga, because this is a program that has never won an NCAA title, just their second title appearance. In 2017, they reached the national title game, lost to North Carolina, but this provided an all-time classic again. I mentioned 15 years ago was the last time UCLA and Gonzaga met in the Final Four for a chance to advance to the title game. That provided an all-time classic. Gonzaga was on the losing end of that. And so now they were able to exact some revenge here. But I just have to give a shout out to both programs, both coaches, because as a fan, this is all you can ask for. You never expect games to end this way. You never expect players to provide everything in a basketball game. The underdogs, the quest for perfection, the polar opposite styles, clutch shot making and taking, bold, audacious shot taking and making, teams playing together. It was officiated well. And normally you never say that. These games were officiated well. The refs did a great job. Obviously, there's always some little fouls that you think were called or not called, but for the most part, they didn't interfere with the outcome of the game. And that's all you can ask for. And I will say this, UCLA, Mick Cronin has resuscitated this traditional program, this traditional powerhouse that had been besmirched for the last decade and a half. UCLA, their program is back. Their program is back to vitality again, and just a tremendous season for the Bruins. Had a really have a really bright future ahead. But when we look back at this tournament run, first of all, it's the greatest tournament run, I'd say, for a double-digit seed ever, the greatest double-digit seeded team ever. But Gonzaga, this is the moment they'll look back on and say, this is what we used to propel us to winning a national title.